in Jerusalem today.
The Israeli president delivered an eulogy and apologized for not being able to bring Goldberg Poland home. Here's a closer look at the lives of the 6 hostages who were kidnapped on October 7th. They were held for months and eventually lost their lives. Netanyahu says Hamas killed them last week as ceasefire negotiations stalled. Take a look.
Alive, and with them real hopes of their release, until so recently. Hersh Goldberg Poland, Aiden Yerushalmi, Carmel Gad, Almog Sarusi, Alexander Lobanov, Ori Danino, found by the IDF in a Hamas tunnel in Gaza. Forensic evidence showing they were executed less than 3 days prior.
They were brutally murdered by Hamas terrorists a short while before we reached them.
American-born Hersh Goldberg Poland, happy-go-lucky, according to his family. A hero on October 7th, losing part of his arm, trying to save others from Hamas gunfire and grenades at the Nova Music Festival. Becoming an international icon of the hostages' horrific suffering, forced to perform a propaganda video for the terror group.
The time is now.
Hersh, if you can hear us, we love you. Stay strong. Survive.
Bring them home.
Horrible truths piling on the pain.
We need a deal now for his future, for our future.
This shouldn't have happened. Shouldn't happen.
Aiden Yerushalmi was just 24 years old, a bartender at the Nova Music Festival when Hamas attacked, calling her 2 sisters. Her last words, "They've caught me." Carmel Gad, a 40-year-old occupational therapist, was visiting her parents at Kibbutz Be'eri, next to the Nova Music Festival, saw her mother killed before she was snatched by Hamas. 27-year-old Almog Sarusi was at the music festival with his girlfriend
committing the
when she got injured in
genocide.
the Hamas attack. He stayed with her, trying to staunch her fatal wounds before he was captured. Alexander Lobanov was the bar manager at the festival, 32 years old, a Russian-Israeli. His wife, Mikhail, gave birth to their 2nd child this year, a son. He will never meet his father. Ori Danino was another October 7th hero. The 25-year-old fled the music festival, taking friends to safety in his car, then returned to help Maya and Itai Regev. The 3 got captured. Maya and Itai released last November.
Hamas is continuing to steadfastly refuse all proposals. Even worse, at the exact same time, it murdered 6 of our hostages. Whoever murders hostages does not want a deal.
The U.S. military says it killed 15 ISIS terrorists in western Iraq last week. U.S. Central Command says it conducted a joint raid with Iraqi security forces. CENTCOM says the terrorists were armed with numerous weapons, including grenades and explosive belts. The military says there were no civilian casualties and that the operation targeted ISIS leaders. CENTCOM also says the U.S. will keep aggressively pursuing ISIS terrorists with coalition and Iraqi partners. Iraq's military released still images of the hideouts, weapons, and other materials seized in the raids. It says the raid was conducted after airstrikes. Unnamed defense officials told multiple outlets that 7 U.S. troops were injured during the raid. They said the troops were in stable condition. U.S. officials say President Biden has been briefed on the raid.
Children in Russia and Ukraine are supposed to head back to school today for the first day of the semester, but aerial attacks are impacting kids and their parents on both sides of the border. Moscow fired dozens of missiles and drones towards Ukraine's capital city, Kyiv, today. Ukraine's Air Force said it destroyed 22 of 35 missiles and 20 out of 23 attack drones. The attack sparked fires and damaged homes as well as infrastructure. Ukrainian parents often buy large bouquets of flowers for their young children on the first day of school. A resident said some florists had to hide this morning as the bombs were flying in. People are also being affected on the other side of the border in the Russian city of Belgorod. Some kindergartens will close for a week, while several schools will hold classes online. This comes after a Ukrainian attack destroyed a child care facility today. Both sides deny targeting civilians.
And Russian President Vladimir Putin says Ukraine's Kursk incursion failed to stop advances from Russia's military. He says Russian forces are reclaiming large areas of Ukraine's Donbas region. Putin also claimed that Ukraine is not looking to end the war with Russia. He says that's because re-elections would have to be held in Ukraine after the war ends. According to Putin, the chances of the current Ukrainian government being re-elected are slim. Ukraine did not hold its last presidential elections due to the ongoing conflict. Fresh off a 2-week vacation, President Joe Biden will once again hit the campaign trail for Vice President Kamala Harris. The two are then scheduled to appear together at a campaign event in Pittsburgh Monday afternoon. Biden is also expected to appear at other events in Pennsylvania as well as Wisconsin and Michigan over the next 5 days. Democratic allies are hoping Biden will continue to hold sway with older voters and blue-collar voters. It's unknown, however, how often Biden and Harris will be campaigning together in the lead-up to the election day, but Biden has indicated he is willing to do whatever is needed for the campaign. Harris has been scaling back her own public appearances as she prepares for next week's debate against Trump.
The race to the presidential election is intensifying, with critical dates approaching. Here's a breakdown. Voting begins in North Carolina on September 6th. Absentee ballots are sent out and can be returned. Then 4 days later, on September 10th, there's a presidential debate between former President Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris. Just over a week after that, on the 18th, comes Trump's sentencing in the New York criminal case. Then on October 1st is the vice presidential debate between Senator J.D. Vance and Governor Tim Walz. November 5th is Election Day, the final day of voting and the start of vote counting. Hotel workers across the country are striking after contract talks with hotels broke down. The companies affected are some of the biggest names in the business. Beginning yesterday, some 10,000 workers from Marriott, Hilton, and Hyatt hotels began a multi-day strike. They're pressing hotels and chains to raise wages and benefits. They also want the hotels to restore daily room cleaning that was scaled back during the pandemic. The Unite Here union represents the workers. It says hotel workers are being stretched thin. The union says working conditions force workers to focus on speed over service. And it's not just the hotel industry. Around 32,000 workers at Boeing could be on the verge of a major strike, demanding better wages, health care, retirement, and time off.
Travel this Labor Day weekend is up 9% from last year, but internationally, travel is down 4%. AAA says people hitting the road will get a better deal with gas prices down $3.43. That's down to that amount per gallon. It's down from as well $3.86 compared to a year ago. The Transportation Secretary Administration plans to screen more than 17 million people between last Thursday and this coming Wednesday.
Coming up, the latest on accusations against former President Trump after his appearance at Arlington National Cemetery. How Trump responded to Vice President Harris's latest statement after the break.
TV News. Bottom line is, I know you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, but let's give you some good news in the midst of the bad news. Watch us nightly, right here on MTV News, for a full dose of America's hope.
The controversy over a visit by former President Trump to Arlington National Cemetery continues. Trump posted videos yesterday of family members of fallen soldiers. They were responding to Vice President Kamala Harris's criticism of Trump's recent visit to the solemn site.
President Trump has called. President Trump shows up. President Trump takes the time to hear our loved ones' stories.
We invited him to be there. These are the only memories we get to make with our son, and it is you who is playing politics and trying to detract from our memories made that day.
President Trump has been there for us. He's been a rock for us. He showed compassion for us, and he showed he truly cares for the families that truly do know what the ultimate sacrifice really is.
President Trump laid wreaths at the tomb of the unknown soldier in Arlington Cemetery last week to mark the 3rd anniversary of the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. Trump was joined by family members of fallen service members during the event. Vice President Harris wrote a lengthy X post on Saturday accusing the former president of playing politics at the venue. She wrote, quote, Donald Trump's team chose to film a video there, resulting in an altercation with cemetery staff. Harris also wrote that Trump disrespected sacred ground.
Right now, we'll discuss this and more with Lieutenant Colonel Darren Gobb, a retired member of the U.S. Army and an international military strategist. He has conducted many ceremonies just like the one held to honor those killed in the Afghanistan pullout. Lieutenant, during your time in the military, you were in the largest unit for the conducting of military funeral honors and have attended hundreds of funerals and ceremonies. Did Trump violate any cemetery rules here?
No, he didn't. No, and I was a member of the 3rd Infantry, the Old Guard there in Fort Myer, Virginia, and did over 600 funerals as a casket team member while there, and that's been over 30 years now, 30 years ago. But he didn't violate anything. I mean, it's, first of all, many people come to lay wreaths at the Two-Man Unknown Soldier. Groups, organizations throughout the year, they come there to do that in honor of the fallen. This is a case of the families wanted to do this. They invited former President Trump to be there. Whether there were cameras there or not wouldn't have mattered because Trump usually does that even if there's no one even paying attention. So, yeah, this is absolutely completely normal, and it's been turned into a massive political gimmick by the Harris campaign and the Biden administration, trying to think he's doing something unusual, which he's not at all.
We heard just earlier in our broadcast Vice President Kamala Harris on Saturday posting a statement on X saying that Trump, quote, disrespected sacred ground all for the sake of a political stunt, which you alluded to just now, her statements on this. Now, this prompted a large response from Gold Star families, some of whom we also heard about, and we'll get to that in a moment. But in your view, did the former president handle this ceremony with the proper respect and sensitivity?
Absolutely. This is exactly what you would want to see in this situation is solemn, respectful, honoring those who served and those who were lost. And in the end, it's the opinion that really matters here the most is the opinion of the parents who lost their children in this bombing in Kabul. And every single one of them has said they invited Trump. He has been their rock, as you heard, and he has been respectful and been there for them the entire time. Harris and Biden both have been completely absent. So I'm going to default to the parents' opinion. All the rest of this is just useless noise, basically.
So they spoke about feeling this personal relationship with Trump on this issue. But what about politics? By being at the graveside, these photos being taken and posted, do you see it as making it political?
Well, everything is going to be made political this season. It doesn't really matter what you do. He can lean over and tie his shoes in the wrong place, and they're going to try to say it's political, but they're also going to do the same thing. So Biden showed up in Arlington Cemetery and took photo shots, which were specifically political endeavors. Harris has done the same thing. So it's hypocritical for them to complain that Trump showed up to give honor to the fallen when the families invited him there in the first place. They've done the same thing, Harris and Biden. The difference is that Trump showed up to the families when no one was even watching years ago. Biden and Harris have yet to even contact those families, so that's the difference.
And in regards to the response of those Gold Star families rushing to Trump's defense, do you think that this sentiment is shared by a majority of other current and former military personnel and their families?
Hell yeah.
They do. And I've talked to many, I've engaged with many on different platforms, and they recognize this for what it is. And sure, you're going to find those who disagree and will complain, but you'll always have that. But the largest voice and the loudest voice is actually those who completely support this. And regardless of the veterans' opinion, which is massively in support of what Trump did, again, it's the opinion of the 13 and the families that matter the most.
Now, the activities of the military are by nature connected to politics through policy and the decisions made by the commander-in-chief. How do we appropriately thread the needle between keeping the military and military deaths apolitical while also ensuring accountability?
Well, you said the key word there, which is accountability, and the video you're showing now is from Kabul, of course, and there's been zero accountability there. So you don't have to actually thread a needle. What you have to do is elect a commander-in-chief who knows that he's in command of the military and does it with the best interests of this nation and the readiness of our forces in mind. And unfortunately, for the last 4 years, you've seen the complete opposite. So you don't have to, again, try to think that you're going to thread a needle here. Get the right person in office. Focus on the military's readiness. Let them be the apolitical organization that secures the constitutional privileges for every single American citizen only. And it's actually supposed to be quite that simple.
And where do we go from here with this incident to show proper respect to the 13 service members who made the ultimate sacrifice and lost their lives and their families?
Well, I think first of all, we should hopefully elect the kind of commander-in-chief people think will embody the kind of leadership this nation needs over its military and so much more of the federal government that they do directly oversee. Give that person a Congress and a Senate who are willing to support and defend the Constitution, not support and defend an agenda that is destructive to the American way of life. These are the things that we have to do. We've got to get rid of DEI and all that kind of stuff in the military and go back to merit-based promotions and do what the military is supposed to do. You bring them off the porch when you need a war one. That's it.
Lieutenant Colonel Darren Gobb, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Stefan.